Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
This is Science for Humans with Dr. Jeff Galini.
Hey, Dr. Jeff, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Carl. How are you?
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, so who doesn't have inflammation today, you think, Dr. Jeff?
Oh, man. I would say nobody, Carl. It is a fast-growing thing, because there's so many different causes of it.
That's the real problem. So somebody posted something on Facebook this morning, and they said this thing is the root of all disease. And it was something silly, actually. But they were selling a product, right? And I was thinking, is there one thing that really could be linked back to all modern disease today? And while inflammation is, in fact, sometimes the first domino, it definitely is many times the second and third domino. I would say that inflammation is, in fact, implicated in the etiology of probably 80% of chronic disease today.
Well, and some of the, the more common ones that are linked to inflammation, arthritis, allergies, Alzheimer's, asthma, heart disease, lupus, common ground, inflammation.
And that many of those are autoimmune disorders.
Yes.
And, excuse me, autoimmune disorders seem to have a real inflammatory component. Look at rheumatoid arthritis. Look at multiple sclerosis. The lesions that form on the brain are actually driven by inflammation. So, yeah, you're right. If somebody has an autoimmune disorder or if they are prone to autoimmune disorders, they must pay attention to inflammatory markers and the things that cause inflammation.
Absolutely. And, there's basically two types of inflammation, good inflammation and bad. So I just wanted to kind of talk about, what happens when you get a cut, because I think a lot of times we take that for granted. But it's a pretty integral process,
Right.
Basically you get a cut, an infection, this is where the bacteria is entering into the system, and our immune system, kicks in immediately. Different types of specialized cells start to go there, like histidine and cytokines, which alert your body of damage. The histidine's main job is to increase that blood flow to that area, which that's what causes the redness and the swelling. And then you've got the macrophages that come in. These are kind of the eating cells, which secrete immune messengers. So, this is all a normal process to help our bodies, heal when we have an injury, a sunburn, a cut. The second type is, what kind of causes all of these other items is the chronic inflammation, where your body thinks that you've got some infection happening, and this whole process continues, which that's where all the damages occur.
And one of the interesting additions to the discussion on inflammation that's evolved or arisen in the past couple years is this term resolvins. There are certain things that help to resolve. So the notion of suppressing inflammation is a good one, but you don't want to suppress inflammation completely because, as you point out, there is good and bad inflammation. You don't want to suppress good inflammation so that things heal. But as you suppress inflammation to some degree as a therapeutic approach, you also have to increase resolvins so that the inflammation that is started resolves itself. And this is another component of the inflammation cycle that most don't talk about. Most just talk about inflammation like it's a fire and it has to be put out. And it's more like you're cooking. The fire you need is about 6 inches around to cook with, but you've got the whole stovetop on fire. You still want to cook. So you don't want to put out the whole fire. You just want to put out the fire that's not being used for the cooking process.
That's a good analogy because, that's what happens in the pharmaceutical industry. There are actually drugs, they may be on the market now, but I know they've been in a development to actually inhibit that whole inflammatory response. I mean, how dangerous is that?
So dangerous. But the sad part is your doctor will recommend it and people will take it and the FDA will allow it.
I was just thinking about the little clip you sent me.
Well, I posted something on Facebook this morning. It's worth just injecting at this moment. I posted a picture from a 1930s newspaper ad that said more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarettes. It's got a picture of a doctor with a white lab coat on. He's got a cigarette in his hand. And it goes on to explain that, Camels are good for you. And back then, doctors actually recommended that their patients smoke. They said it was good for the nerves. If you had anxiety, they told you to smoke. And the reason this is important is because today, right now, we're being told things by doctors that are supported by the FDA, that are being promoted in the mainstream media, and we're being told that they're safe. I don't care what it is. I'm not looking to pick something. But there's something that someone in this audience is paying attention to, that instinctively they're saying, I don't think that's good, but they're saying, well, scientists say it's good, doctor says it's good, FDA approved, doctor recommended. Just remember that doctors recommended that you smoke cigarettes back in the 30s. And then weigh what a doctor's recommendation really means to you.
And it's interesting because I've got a nephew who's becoming an MD, and he's been an advocate, fan of supplements his whole life as an athlete. And it's interesting to hear what, they are teaching, these new doctors, about new technologies. I mean, they are so single-sided, basically saying whatever the drug companies tell us, that's what we tell everybody else. And my nephew said, well, hey, what about supplements? Oh, no, we don't even talk about them. So let's not even go there.
Yeah, and the reason that they don't talk about them is because they're not, quote-unquote, FDA approved. That's the reason. Just remember, the FDA approved thalidomide. The FDA approved Vioxx. The FDA approves things that kill people every single day. But people don't pay attention to it for some reason. People are so myopic. They only hear some parts of the message. They ignore the other parts. And quite frankly, doctors are part of the problem, because I went to a doctor once, Dr. Jeff, because I had brachial tendinitis from doing heavy rowing. So he wrote me a prescription for Vioxx. God's honest truth. This is probably 8 years ago, 9, maybe longer, maybe 10 years ago. I didn't get the prescription filled because I thought, you know what, I'll find another way around. This was before all the people started dying from Vioxx. I had tendinitis. He wrote me a prescription for Vioxx.
Well, it's like anything. You go in today with any type of ailment, the first thing they do is, give you some antidepressant, to calm you down so that you then can figure out what the ailments are. I mean, it's crazy, But
so getting back to the big pharma thing, that they will prescribe, they're looking to prescribe drugs that completely suppress inflammation. This is obviously a very, very bad idea. Are there better ways to leverage inflammation to get rid of the chronic while helping the good inflammation?
Absolutely, and I wanted to talk about first a little bit about, the causes of inflammation, because I think a lot of people sometimes think that it just comes from, a cut or a burn. But there's a lot of outward things, and this is kind of, getting to your question, but things like stress, parasites, viruses, environmental poisons. The show right before was talking about all these pesticides, sugar, smoking, high blood insulin. These are all things that cause inflammation.
Wow.
So obviously, there are ways to address this and to attack these type of environmental things that will eliminate inflammation. Also, the arachidonic acid that are in some food sources, could be inflammation promoters. They're in eggs, beef, dairy products, organ meats, so some people that are subjected to that. But there's another thing. Have you heard of AGS, the Advancedglycation end products?
Oh, yeah, we've done shows on AGEs. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of ways to get AGEs. Let's talk about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, when you cook or fry things at high temperature, you excite that inflammatory process. The proteins get bound to the glucose molecules, and they're difficult for the body to break down. Your body actually looks at this as if it's some type of infection, and this whole anti-inflammatory process starts up. And wherever it's at is where it's going to attack. I mean, that's pretty heavy.
Now, the advanced glycation end product discussion is a very, very important one. And here's one of the reasons. You cannot get rid of them once they're in your body. Liver spots, as we age, are accumulations of AGEs on the skin, on the surface of the body. There's evidence that AGEs promote the graying of hair. AGEs can be consumed, as Dr. Jeff points out, overcooking meat. People don't realize, they think that because the label on that steak says 0 carbohydrates, you don't realize that there's glycogen in that muscle, and glycogen is a form of sugar. And when you brown meat, it's the glycogen that's caramelizing and making it brown.
And that's called the Maillard reaction, when you have a sugar that reacts with an amino acid. That's why the meat turns brown while it cooks. If it wasn't for the reaction, the meat would still be red when it's cooked.
Interesting. But the other way you get AGEs is internally. If you are someone who's pre-diabetic, if you regularly have elevating blood sugar levels, the elevated blood sugar running through your body is being oxidized, and the spin-off are AGEs, and these accumulate in organ tissue, in brain tissue, in tissue in general. Not a good thing. Now, there's some people out there who think you can reverse the accumulation of AGEs, but the majority of scientists today believe it's virtually impossible, because it's kind of like living in a house where someone smoked for 40 years. You can wash the walls, but it permeates the fiber of everything in the house. The only way to get rid of the smoke is to tear the house down. That's not a practical solution for the human body. AGEs permeate all tissue, and it's virtually impossible to get rid of them. That's why you must do things to avoid them.
And they say that where those AGEs occur, that's where the ailment. So, such things as cataract, arthritis, memory loss, heart disease, wrinkled skin, which those are all irreversible. Obviously you can have some cataract surgery and things, but, your body can't reverse that damage once it's done.
Yeah, and that's why it's better to get this stuff in check from the get-go by diet, exercise, lifestyle, but also there are things you can take from a supplemental standpoint. And I think what we should do right now, Dr. Jeff, is take a break.
Yes.
And when we come back, let's start talking about supplements that are better choices for dealing with inflammation. We're talking right now with my co-host, Dr. Jeff Galini. This is Science for Humans. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Do you know how to properly use carbohydrates to ignite your performance in the field and in the gym? You will now, thanks to this free book by EFX Sports. The Carb User's Guide for Maximum Performance reveals why omitting carbohydrates from your diet can totally crush your gains. Ever wonder how many grams you need for your specific sport? Not anymore. We give you the critical number you need to dominate your competition. You'll even discover the super carb that's taking the athletic world by storm. You must try it to believe it. Go to getcarbolyn.com/carb guide today and get your copy absolutely free. Once again, it's GETKARBOLYN.com/CARBGUIDE.
You're listening to the Superhuman Channel. We're ripped and we're ready.
Welcome back to Science for Humans. Do you pay attention to the commercials, or do you try to tune them out? Did you notice that we ran 2 spots, the same spot, during the last break? We're going to reward you if you pay attention to the commercials. We're starting something new, and it's going to go on every week from now on. It's called the Secret Word Contest. During a commercial break, in every live show, there will be a secret word given. You'll hear it. It'll happen between two spots. You email that secret word in to onair@superhumanradio.com, and you are automatically entered. Every single week we'll be giving things away. This week, since it's starting today, Wednesday, from this Wednesday through next Tuesday, it's $200 worth of Quest products. You can choose protein bars, Quest chips, or protein powder. Every single week we'll be giving something away. We're going to reward you for listening to the commercials. So listen for today's secret word and email it into onair@superhumanradio.com, and you are entered, and you can enter every single week until you win something. Doesn't get much better than that, does it, Dr. Jeff?
That's pretty good. I might have to enter too.
Yeah, there you go. And I'm sure that within the next week or so, we'll be also using some AAP, All-American EFX products as rewards as well. So listen to the commercials, everybody. Don't tune them out. So what about natural products? I mean, what things help to coax inflammation to resolve and not necessarily completely suppress it so that it can do its job?
There are a lot of things out there. And as you know, from the natural side of things, we try to prevent, where usually on the drug side, they're trying to mask, as I always say. But natural products, there's no side effects. So some of the conventional things that, have been used over the years, before I talk about the granddaddy of all things, fish oil has been very effective for a lot of people, as an anti-inflammatory, and is probably one of the most common things used. There are a lot of herbs that people have had great success with. Boswellia probably having the most success. Turmeric, white willow bark, which contains naturally occurring aspirin. Things like aloe vera. Resveratrol is kind of one of the new ones that has come onto the market. And then there's quite a few vitamins, your C, E, D, K, all your B vitamins that we've been talking about, vitamin A. So these are all things that have been reported to give people some good results. The problem is there's no real sound research that has actually proven, which combination or which ones.
This is a shameless plug, and I know that we probably weren't going to go in this direction, but I have to bring it up. When I was in Montana last time, there was a study abstract on your wall, actually two of them, looking at a product that you make, and you guys did some research with children who had rheumatoid arthritis. Is that what it was?
Absolutely, and I was actually going to bring that up because that is the granddaddy of all. There's a lot of natural things, but, as we learn more about how to duplicate what the drug companies have done, but do it from a natural side, it's pretty interesting what can accomplish. And you're talking about a product called Alezyne. EFX markets it under joint rehab, but the active ingredient is Alezyne. Journal of Medicinal Foods, June of 2013, published my research entitled Alezyne as a viable treatment for juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, juvenile idiopathic arthritis. It's at FDA. We've been granted an orphan drug. And what that means is that, the pharmaceutical companies don't go after low population areas. Juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, it's the same as adult rheumatoid arthritis. It just happens at an earlier age in kids. That's what I targeted. It has to be a population of 250,000 or less, and the pharma hasn't developed anything for that. So this is a very interesting product because it worked. Kids were healed. Kids who couldn't even walk were out playing basketball, baseball. Some of the kids were able to get off their medications completely. It's a pretty interesting product.
But now, since we know that works in that pathway, the resolving inflammation pathway in this particular group of people, can we safely extrapolate and say, well, if you're concerned about chronic inflammation in general, this will work for you?
Absolutely. If you look at the studies, we also published a very nice clinical trial on humans that we outperformed acetaminophen, ibuprofen, very joint specific, on the smaller joints, knees, elbows. If you go to allamericanpharmaceutical.com, up at the top under branded ingredients, pull down, go to Alezyne, and you can, read about all of the studies that we've done. There's good information.
How quickly does it start working, Dr. Jeff? I mean, if somebody has, and this is for me personally, so I've got something going on with my left ankle. I think I developed some tendonitis in the Achilles where it attaches to the soleus. And my ankle is swollen because it's inflamed. I want to resolve the inflammation and heal. I don't want to suppress it. Am I a good candidate to use Alezyne?
You are, for most people, depending on, how severe the inflammation is, some people within a matter of a day or two. I know myself personally, whenever I start to get that old knee pain, within 2 days, it's gone. For people who had severe arthritis in our trials, it took a good 30 days, for you to get relief. But it takes a minimum of 60 days, even from the prescription drugs, to get any type of relief. Now, there's also a topical cream that's very interesting that you can put on immediately, and within a few seconds, you will get some immediate relief. A little transdermal action, kind of cool technology on that one.
And it has the same ingredients that are in the capsules in the cream?
It does, absolutely.
Wow.
So you got to remember, the hypothesis, on a natural supplement, we cannot use the word mechanism of action. That is specifically related to drugs. Once you have a mechanism of action, you now can sell it as a drug once you go through the process. So being that, we're at FDA now for a new drug number, we are in that kind of that mechanism of action. So we've kind of got a hypothesis, since it hasn't been proven clinically, but Alezyne is involved in basically down-regulating that pro-inflammatory factors and all of the cascading events that follow. So it does the same thing as these drugs by getting in to the old COX-2, so to say.
Yeah. I chuckled when you said that the drug companies can talk about mechanisms of action because quite often they're not sure about how things work, which I think is comical.
Yeah. I was at a conference not too long ago with a bunch of drug university guys that had done a lot of bench research, and everybody, I was the only one that had my Alezyne research I was presenting. I've got a product on the market. They aren't even anywhere near clinical trials. Some of them will never get to market, and they were all walking around to me going, so what's your mechanism of action? What's your mechanism of action? I found the best response was, what's yours?
Yeah. Because they don't have one. They don't know what to say, right? That shuts the conversation
down. They're like, well,
we
just tried it on one rat. And I'm like, oh, you've tried it on a rat. Well, guess what? I've already got published human trials.
Oh, man. That's got to feel good, huh?
It was pretty good, but anyhow, that's kind of how that world works. Hey, I did want to mention one thing.
Yeah.
I've been getting a lot of emails from folks that over the past several weeks, we've given away a lot of samples and things, and you've indicated that you haven't received them. It takes about 14 days. Due to the overwhelming response here, it's about a 7-day for us to get those packed up for you and out. And they go out U.S. mail, so you know how the old mail service is. But if you haven't received it in 14 days after you request it, then just send a little email, and we'll just send you out another one. Either it got lost in the mail, or the mailman dropped it on your porch and your neighbor took it. But we want to make sure that everybody does get those requests in.
And that wraps it up. Don't forget, you can still get samples of the only patented buffered creatine monohydrate product in the world by going to superhumanradio.com. Bottom right-hand side of the homepage, you'll see Dr. Jeff's handsome face. Click that. I've had people say, well, where do you ask for the sample? This is to send a question. Well, the question should be, hey, Doc, you got any of that creatine left?
And here's my address.
And here's my address, because another reason some of you are not getting your samples is because you forgot to put your address in the request.
And I think you guys have been finding that we're sending you a nice little care package. So even though you ask for the Crealkaline, you're getting a few little extra gifts. So hopefully you're enjoying those.
Dr. Jeff, thanks for being on today, brother.
Thank you, man. Take care.
See you next